So, as promised, I'm back here at the Irish Railroad Workers, the force that built the B&O. Oh, geez, I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to read as much as I can for you. Blah, 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 blah. Start here. The practice of hiring Irish immigrant labor for canal and rail construction, I mentioned both just in the last video, previously established in Britain on the public works projects of the late 18th, early 19th century, quickly adopted in the United States. Although the work of constructing railroads was backbreaking, exhausting, and dangerous work, with death from accident, exposure, and disease common, not rare, but common, it would have enabled Irish immigrants to earn a steady monetary wage. Working on the railroad was a source of opportunity and a way of escaping a life of poverty in Ireland. Kind of, sort of. Trackmen were paid up to $12 to $14 a month, but we have a little problem here, and I'm going to come back to that. Employed indirectly by contractors, i.e. no benefits, no guarantees of pay. Let's see. Between 1828 and 1837, nearly 400,000 Irish people emigrated to North America, looking for work opportunities at the canal and railroad projects. Alongside German immigrants, Black Americans, and native-born white Americans. This would often lead to clashes between the different groups of laborers, just as similar dynamic during the Civil War. Irish workers were often at odds with German immigrants who, like the Irish, were hired en masse by railroad contractors as laborers. Baltimore was a major destination for German-speaking immigrants, blah, 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 blah. Irish immigrants endured the trauma of leaving their homeland, knowing they were never likely to return home. Another point I'm going to get right back to. There's a little girl out there ringing the bell. All right, that's most of it. Now let me address what that sign didn't tell you. They were paid up to, let me see, what was it, $14 a month, which was not great. I think the guy who ran the station, I think the sign downstairs said he was being paid $40 a month. So right out of the gate, they're doing dangerous, backbreaking work, exposed with disease common. So they're doing this for a third of the pay that the guy who was operating this railway station was making. So that's point one. Point two is that immigrant workers, wherever they may have been found at the time, whether it was working on the railway or the canal or whatever, were sometimes paid, often paid with some regularity in the beginning. And then a little while after the job started, sometimes were scantily paid, occasionally paid. Sometimes they were paid less after the work started, and sometimes they went for periods without being paid. And that's what the sign isn't telling you. But if you read the literature, if you read the books, if you read your history on the C&O canal projects and the building of the B&O, all books will tell you that. And that's this dynamic. My point is, this whole dynamic here has never changed throughout human history. It's never changed, and it's never gonna. It's never gonna. Immigrants will always be the labor class that is expected to go through backbreaking, exhausting, and dangerous work, with death from accident, exposure, and disease being common. And the last part that I mentioned that I said I would get back to is the point that these immigrants are always miles and miles, thousands of miles from home. So, of course, it stands to kind of reason. Oh, I never know. Look at this. B&O Railroad, 1862. You really think all this stuff is a coincidence, folks? So once the projects got underway, and all these, mega projects, whatever they are, wherever they are, this is always the motif. This is always the story of how it happens. there's great promise. People flock to these areas from far and wide. They think that, hey, maybe there's a good deal, there's some opportunity in for it. And then they get thousands of miles from home. They realize that it's not all it cracked up to be. It's very dangerous work, and then sometimes they stop getting paid. So if they stop getting paid doing these dangerous jobs, whether it's working the canal and, you know, literally digging out the C&O canal by hand, whether it's laying railroad tracks or whatever it is, once they're miles and miles from home and their pay is reduced or becomes intermittent, or sometimes for a period stops altogether, and they're still doing this dangerous work without being paid, what do you call that? What do you call that? I call it slavery. You can attach any label you want to it, but the bottom line is, if you're being paid, if you're not being paid and you're working, that's slavery. Which leads me to my last point. Even today, some folks would maintain that sometimes in some situations, if you are making, you know, about the minimum wage or what have you, that today that translates into what's being, you know, what's called a wage slave or wage slavery, which basically means you're virtually living the same life. You have room and board and food. You work all day for your room and board and food, and that's it. Might not have a mean, nasty slave driver, you know, cracking the whip or doing any of the other, you know, nasty things, or, you know, sometimes kind of stereotypical things that would sometimes happen in some situations. Mind you, not all slave owners were brutal, while some were. You got some real mean, nasty bosses out there today in the working world, in the corporate world, in the labor world, who are also very mean and nasty. If you don't follow their orders, you have no job. And as a wage slave, you don't really have any choice. And in a crumbling economy, there are no more jobs to be had. And you're basically looking at one of those people right now. I know appearances are something else, and you only see what I show you. I don't show you my daily grind at work. I don't show myself, you know, picking up extremely heavy boxes of X, Y, and Z all day long, just to keep a roof over my head and to really have no freedom, or very little freedom. You guys want to talk about job mobility in the US right now? Do you really want to talk about job opportunities in the US right now? You want to go down that road? You want to take a look around you at the you know, vast sea of nothing and no opportunity whatsoever? Even sometimes for people holding degrees, even sometimes for people with professional degrees. That's the state that we're in right now. And what is the motif or the model that is slowly coming into view? That, of course, would be the gig economy, where people are expected to work and deliver groceries for the people in the nice neighborhoods and stuff, right? And and sing and dance and deliver groceries and bring them their stuff and drive as Uber drivers and work DoorDash and all these worthless jobs just to keep a roof over their head and just to keep food in their stomach, while at the same time these corporations that are making plenty of money are offering no benefits for these gig economy jobs. No benefits, no health care, nothing. You're just expected to drive people around town, and you're expected to deliver their groceries for little pay and no benefits. And that's the new economy that we're walking into. You see, things on the outside to some people might seem like they've changed a whole lot, and in some ways they have, and in other ways they haven't. But ain't that history for you? That's lesson number 1. It's broken like a clock. The same things are going to always happen. The immigration ruse is going to continue to be used as a wedge issue, first of all, and as a way to get cheap labor when no one else is willing to do it, and when American companies aren't willing to pay enough. More thoughts on labor for you guys. I'll see you on the next one.